Welcome to the Backlot 605 podcast. I am your host. I am Casey Kelderman, and today I'm joined by my Killer Countdown co-host, Blake Ginnethan.
Hey, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Blake, and I brought you on today because we're going to talk a little horror.
Hell yes.
Hell yes, because we are joined with the writer and director of the House trilogy, Stephen Cognetti.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Good.
Great. And then we are also joined by his producer, Joe Bandelli.
Hello, everyone.
Thank you guys first of all for being on and just joining us for the podcast. I am so excited to be talking about the House trilogy with both of you, and let's just start off with that. So the House LLC is a found footage horror film that was released in 2015. It now has 2 sequels, including the Abaddon Hotel and the latest Part 3 Lake of Fire, which was released last week on Shudder. So let's just jump into where this initial idea for the first film came from.
The initial idea came from I wanted to make a movie about a haunted attraction gone wrong, and the original script was a narrative script, and it was terrible. I didn't have the angle was bad, and I rethought it, and I actually at the same time I was thinking I'm definitely not going to have enough money to make a narrative film anyway, so I switched the format to found footage. And then that kind of breathed new life and a new angle into the film, and the whole story of the Abaddon came about. The YouTube video in the beginning, they were trying to figure out, kind of introducing it as a documentary, a fake documentary. So I just combined 60 minutes NBC, Dateline mysteries, but made it like a paranormal thing instead of someone murdered someone, is what those shows are usually about, and went that angle with the story, and then it just. And it was a much better story at that point. But the scares kind of stayed the same from the first draft of the narrative version, just transferring them to the doc version. But that's where it came from.
Yeah. So the first film, it follows this group that is setting out to rebuild this abandoned hotel and turn it into a haunted house. Now, did you grow up going to haunted houses at all? Is that where this idea for a haunted house film came from?
No, I'm not really much of a haunt guy myself, but I kind of fell in love with the community when I was writing the script. I would research the haunted house attraction, and it ends up it is a whole community. They have conventions. People all over around the country do this, and it's a big business. And I just gained more respect for what people do and the performances they put on every Halloween. And then I started I love haunted houses now. I go to the one we shoot. We shot all 3 films, and I go to that every year now, around in October. But at the time, no, I just thought it was an interesting concept to shoot a documentary about an event gone wrong, and that what event is cool to have gone wrong is definitely haunted attractions, because if something's going wrong, how would you know that? It might be part of the show, so that's what made it a little interesting in my mind.
And for those of you who make horror films out there, making films costs a lot of money, and it's very difficult. And we were lucky enough, specifically Steve was very lucky enough to find Angie Moyer at the Waldorf Estate in Lehigh, Pennsylvania, because without her and without that haunted attraction that she has, none of these films would be possible.
Right, exactly.
So it's a real location you guys shot at.
Yep.
Very cool.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I want to jump onto that, because I think the house is so iconic, and now having you say that it's an actual haunted house attraction, is that what drew you to that location to begin with? Is the fact that it already was this haunted attraction?
Oh yeah, for sure. That helped us. At first, I was looking around for actual abandoned locations, and I was like, "That's nuts. Let's not. What that would be. We don't have the production and on our end, the logistics to make an actual abandoned place into a haunted attraction for the movie. So let's find a haunted attraction that actually could pose as both a functioning haunted attraction and also abandoned for years and years, like the story calls for. So that was the Waldorf Estate of Fear."
Yeah, and Steve, I don't know if you ever find this interesting, but it makes explaining the movie to people, especially in the early days in 2015, a little difficult, because we shot a found footage haunted house attraction movie about a group that puts on a haunted house attraction in a haunted house that's really haunted.
Yep.
In a place that someone is actually doing a haunted house attraction.
Yeah.
It kind of makes it a little confusing at first.
True.
So did you guys use a lot of the stuff that was already in the house, like for your production of the Hell House trilogy?
I think so, right, Joe? I think most of the stuff, Angie, anything she didn't have that the script called for, she, we made sure she had. So, but it wasn't much. I mean, she most of the stuff you see on the Haunted tour in the beginning is mostly her stuff.
Yeah, definitely. There are a lot of things that are specifically Angie's and are specifically to the Waldorf estate, but then there are certain things that Steve purchased and we brought together that we modified and made a little bit different to pop out for a lot of the scares in the first film that kind of lingered on and became kind of what I would say are pretty big moments in this first film, second film, and so on into the third.
Now then, I got to jump off this because as a fan of this trilogy, and for those people listening that have seen the Hell House movies, I think the scariest part for me, just because I don't like clowns, is the clown that you use. Was that part of the haunted attraction already?
No, it was. So the script called for a clown that was. It's actually how this went down. Was the script called for a clown that was very like basic looking, because I hate clowns that have very exaggerated features like big noses and all that stuff. Like, so I just wanted a very minimalist clown, like a very pale face, not a lot of detail, because I always thought less is more, and that's how you're going to make a clown scary. Is if it's not exaggerated on its features. So we actually had a clown mask made that was like kind of blank, and it was shipped out like just in time for production. It was like we're just gonna be late, and it was garbage. And we couldn't use it. And then Angie retrofitted an old clown mask she had, and she made it like she kind of did that. She made it pale. She darkened the eyes like it called for, and our makeup artist did that. Like kind of modified it though. So it was kind of like an old mask she had been wearing, but she modified it to like what the script was calling for, and it ended up working out perfectly. And now it's I just like kind of lucky that she had that, because like the mask that was shipped to set, like right when we're about to shoot, we opened it up. We're like, we can't use this. This is like nothing like what we're asking for. So it was just like a lot of like last minute work by Angie and Lex, our makeup artist at the time, to just modify something in time for the shoot, and it worked out that way.
Yeah, and a lot of the stuff that we did with the clown in the first film were very, I give Steve a lot of credit on this, because it was all stuff that was written to the script. It was scares into the script. The fact that the clown became the scary thing, like I think that was just a very good for us that it went in that direction, because it was just supposed to be a demon within this franchise of Hell House, and like you said, people are very afraid of clowns, so it worked to our advantage.
Yeah, it worked on me.
It scared the hell out of me.
It is terrifying.
Yeah. Was this always planned as a trilogy, or did you see some sort of success with the first one where some more ideas formulated?
No. Well, so the way I always tell the story is that I kind of always wanted to do. When I made Hell House 1, I think I jokingly said this to you. I'm like, there's story bits I lost in the first script when I changed it to a found footage film, because when you go footage, you can't justify a camera in a lot of places, so a lot of story elements that were in the first draft of the script that was narrative had to be cut out. So they were losing a little bit of the history of the Abaddon, and a lot more story that I wanted to be in the film. So I jokingly said, well, we'll just tell that in the sequels. And it was just never meant to happen. But then, when I realized, I'm like, well, we might actually be able to make, the full story. I started fleshing that out a little bit more when Hell House gained a little bit of popularity, telling the story I wanted to tell, and then bringing it into the three films. So I wrote the story for 2 and 3 together, and then we shot 2, and then a year later shot 3.
Yeah, when Steve used to tell me, I remember that exactly, Steve, on the first one, whenever something didn't go the right way, Steve would be like, we'll fix it in the sequel. We'll get to the sequel. And I was always like, no, let's just make it good in this one. Let's not worry about the sequel. We may not get there. And then the first one went well, and obviously by the time we made the second film, it was like, okay, clearly we're going to make a third if we're making the second one, because we're not going to close all the doors and complete the story in the second one. So we wanted to tell that third one to finalize it all.
Now the third one, it was just released on Shudder. How did Shudder become involved with the third project?
The first film was on Shudder, and I think it just gained a lot of popularity for the first film being on Shudder. So I think a lot of fans who have seen the first movie saw it on Shudder, and Shudder is just a great horror platform. So for us to have the first film get on there was just awesome, and so we were just so happy that they were interested in it. And so we just went into 2 and 3 not knowing that Shudder would even be interested in having the second or third one, but they were interested. They were, which is lucky for us because like we're huge fans of Shudder. So for them to say like, hey, we'll put 2 on our platform too, and 3, we're like, of course we're huge fucking fans. Let's do it. So
yeah, and we've heard a lot of fans, especially with the second film, that were saying certain things like, oh, how come it's not on this? How come it's not on this? Like, in our opinion, Shudder has always been that platform that is really for horror fans and really pushes horror fans. And, there are people who watch horror films that are on Prime and Netflix and all this other stuff, but Shudder has a different variety of horror films. So when they came to us, we were more than thrilled because we figured true horror fans would get the opportunity to see Hell House if we had it on Shudder. Yeah.
Absolutely, that's where I watched the trilogy, and Shudder, it's one of the best apps out there, especially for horror fans or even just movie fans in general. It has such a wide array of selection, and having your 3 films on there, I think, at least in the last week, I've noticed with the latest film coming out, Shudder is really pushing it forward and pushing it hard, and wants people to see this movie. Have you found a lot of support from the people at Shudder?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I felt like they have been pushing us very hard, and from working on other films outside of the Hell House franchise, the same with Steve, I'm sure as well. You always find that when you have a partner, you're hoping they do certain things to the films, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Shudder has been tremendous for this. I think part of the reason why in 2018 Hell House 2 was one of the 3 most seen films on Shudder was because Shudder was pushing it and because they were marketing it and promoting it. So we look for partners like that. And again, back to what we said recently, having a partner that really pushes horror and really understands the independent horror world, that's definitely someone that we want to work with. So we've been so grateful and happy to be working with them because they've been doing exactly what we wanted from a partner.
Yeah, as well as the film's distribution company, which is Terror Films, too. They've been great partners as well, and so both Shudder and Terror have been great partners.
So we're checking out the credits for the first film before you guys called, and we noticed there's a lot of Cognettis credited. Is this a family affair? The series?
What's that?
Is this series like a big family affair?
Oh yeah, well, when you have to make a movie and you don't have any money, the first thing you do is you go to family.
Yeah. You call mom and dad for a little bit of cash.
No, I went to my older brothers and my older cousins who are both doing much better than I am, and they've always been interested in movies and horror movies, and I said like, hey, I'm just interested in doing a horror film. Like, and the thing is, our budget is so small that it's not like I'm asking anybody for like $1 million.
Sure.
Like it's just you get a good bunch of people together with small contributions. We have a tiny budget, and we had to make it work. We didn't really have much to play with, anyways. But yeah, no, I got the family involved. They were executive producers on the film. They floated it financially. And it was just a lot of fun that to have a family is so involved in my first project. So
may I ask what the budget was for the first movie?
We shot the movie for $45,000.
Wow.
And we had to raise a little bit more money after that to take care of some final things to even get it onto the platform, some technical stuff though.
Sure.
But our budget all up into the start and to finish of the final cut of the film was $45.
Money well spent.
Yeah, no, it was great, and but the reason we were able to do that is because it was found footage. So
right.
You're able to save a lot of money. You're able to shoot 90 pages of script in the 12 days that we shot that.
Wow.
Which you can't really shoot 90 pages of script in 12 days unless it's found footage.
Yeah.
And not to jump the gun here, but I'm sure you guys are going to ask us about this. But in general, I think one of the biggest things that people think is when you're shooting a found footage film, you are awarded certain things like less money, shooting on a shorter time frame, but people think it's just dramatically easier, and it's definitely not. the reason why a found footage film works is because of the cast. Mm-hmm. And in all 3 films, we were very fortunate, and Steve and I did a very, very intricate casting process, and we were very fortunate to have really good casts that carried all 3 films for us.
Yeah, the casting in all 3 films, like you said, is great, and I think that is what, for me, I think found footage, the genre itself, is also very hit and miss. But what, like you said, what makes it work is if the cast works. If you feel the camaraderie, like obviously the big one is the Blair Witch Project. You always felt the camaraderie, the friendship between those 3 people, and you feel that in the Hell House trilogy as well.
It makes it seem more real, and that's the thing you have to go for is realism, and that's what makes found footage, I think, more frightening than than narrative horror, is because there's also the feeling of this could be real, and the cast has to sell that, and as well as it being a documentary and everything. I remember when Blair Witch came out, it was marketed so well because it was, you almost thought that's a true story. We're actually watching real footage, and that's what makes the scares more terrifying, is that the fact that could be real.
And I'm always mesmerized too, because when you look at narrative horror films, or just narrative films in general, and you see successful low budget narrative films become successful, the actors blow up and their careers are made for them. But you don't necessarily see that with found footage films, and to me that always baffles me, because found footage films are carried by the cast, and I have no idea. I will tell you this. If a person is a good actor in a found footage film, I'll cast them in every narrative that I'll ever make for the rest of my life, because they are more than capable of carrying a film if they can do it in a found footage film.
Yeah, that's true. Good point.
Next question I have is Hell House the only found footage series that you guys have worked on?
It's the only movies I've ever worked on myself personally. I don't know about Joe.
Yeah, I mean, I'm working on a couple other ones in development and all that kind of stuff, but in terms of actual execution and putting out, I think the Hell House franchise is the only found footage franchise that both of us have worked on.
Do you guys find it harder or easier to work within that genre and using that type of layout of the story? Do you find it easier or harder to tell the story that way?
I would say found footage has its benefits, and it also has its disadvantages. So the big advantage to found footage, as I was saying earlier, is about scheduling. It's about being able to shoot 90 pages in 12 days, because it's one camera setup per scene. So a typical narrative, you'll have 6, 7, 8 camera setups for a scene. When you're doing one camera angle of coverage per scene, you save so much time, so it's easier on the budget, so it's easier to get the film done in that time frame. The disadvantages is the same thing. It's the lack of coverage. So when we're shooting scares, I would always looking at something, I'd be like, I wish we can do a reverse angle on this. I wish we can get it from this angle now, that angle. But you're locked into that one angle, so you have to make sure that the scares all work in one lockdown angle. And so that's the challenge of found footage, is you don't have the benefits of coverage.
I would say in general, there's probably a good chance that the next thing that Steve and I work on, separately as well as together, is probably going to be narrative. But I would say that there's a good chance that we're both probably going to continue in the found footage world because of the success that we've had with it.
Yeah, I definitely hope so. I fell in love with this trilogy after I watched it, and kind of jumping into Lake of Fire, this is the conclusion to the Hell House trilogy, but are there any ideas for a 4th film, maybe continuing the story of the Abaddon Hotel?
No, definitely not going forward. That story is done, and definitely done, and no 4th but we have been exploring other ideas, but it would definitely not for the story going forward at all.
Yeah, so we're keyword is forward. We are not going forward anymore.
Sure.
All right, I like that. I like that. So I think the Hell House trilogy is a perfect set of movies to watch on just a Halloween movie night with a bunch of friends. You get some popcorn, some beer, and you throw on a couple movies. What would be your guys' perfect Halloween movie night?
Joe, you go first.
Oh, geez. Okay, so do I have to go found footage, or can I go narrative?
It can be anything.
Okay. Well, all right. So I consider myself a purist. So I personally think in all of horror, I think the best horror film ever created of all time for its budget is Halloween, the original 1978 John Carpenter's Halloween. So I think I mean, I currently, every Halloween, watch that film. I probably have watched it over 100 times, and I watch it with people all the time. That movie holds up so well in terms of suspense, because I think the more we grow in society and the further along we get, you're going to have shock factor, you're going to have gore just to satisfy the newer age people because of what they're exposed to in day-to-day reality. But I think that movie does the best with suspense. And then if you're going to go in the found footage world, just to answer that, I think Paranormal Activity is the best found footage film that I've ever seen, because Paranormal Activity did for found footage what I think Nightmare on Elm Street did for horror, which is it took everything that was scary about Blair Witch, it took everything that was terrifying about the single camera, following people, personal, that whole thing, and it brought it to your home, and it made it be like when you're going to sleep, that's when it could happen to you. So both of those films, pick one of those. Those are your perfect Halloween night to me.
Yeah, that's a good one. I agree with Joe. So my favorite horror movie is not Halloween or any of the Halloweens, but I love the Halloweens, and I just think especially the original, is the perfect movie to watch for Halloween. It's not my favorite horror film. My favorite horror film is hands down The Exorcist. I think it's the most terrifying film ever made. It still holds up today, but it's not, for me, it's not a Halloween film, and something about those early Halloween films where they do such a good job of capturing the environment of October and Halloween itself. So that does make it the perfect film to watch on Halloween. So I would agree with Joe on that.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I do the same thing. Every Halloween, it's John Carpenter's original Halloween film, and yeah, you can't go wrong with having that on Halloween night. And the last question.
If you guys want to follow up, throw Trick or Treat in there too, because that's a fun.
You're right. No,
yes.
No, you're right. Trick or Treat is an awesome Halloween film. That's perfect. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. I love Trick or Treat. I have a Sam picture staring at me right now. So yeah, the last question I got for you guys, Stephen and Joe. What's next for you guys then? If this is the end of the Hell House trilogy, what do you guys got coming up?
I guess I'll go first. I got working. I have 2 scripts I want to shoot, but one of them is a narrative, and one of them is a found footage. And I love them both. I think they're both very terrifying. But I just don't. It all depends on where I'm going to be budget wise. And if I don't have a budget, I'm definitely going with the found footage script first. And that's we're probably going to end up shooting that in the spring, 2020, and then we're developing. Joe and I right now are developing the Abaddon tapes, the series, based in the world of the Hell House world, but prequels to everything is what we're doing now.
So yeah, same. Working on those with Steve, hoping that Steve and I can continue this train of success and keep making more films together until we both die eventually. But I would say I have a couple other things in development, and luckily enough, shameless plug, I'm fortunate enough to be directing the documentary about the making of Paranormal Activity now, because no one's ever made a documentary about Paranormal Activity in the entire franchise. So luckily enough, I have that opportunity at my feet, so I'll be doing that as well.
Wow, that's really cool.
That's very cool.
No, it's cool because he's been talking with everybody involved, the actors and director, and so he's been getting all those awesome interviews, and it's such a cool project.
Well, the cool thing about it is, like, I'm taking away all of the learnings that I have from them, and I'm hopefully applying it to the things that Steve and I are doing, because every time I interview someone, I'm asking them a question, and I'm asking what went wrong, how come this didn't work out, and once I hear from the actual filmmakers and the people who've made these films that made millions of dollars, it's like, oh, cool, you were actually thinking this. Great, we're going to go do this when we make our next $100,000 or $50,000 film, so that hopefully we can make millions of dollars.
Yeah, that sounds cool. I'm excited to see it. Do you have any set release dates or where that will be found?
For that film?
Yeah.
That film's going to come out in 2020. We're not positive when. It's probably a 7th Paranormal Activity was greenlit, I think, 2 or 3 months ago by Blumhouse. So our goal is to release the documentary, hopefully as a package with all 6 Paranormal Activity films. But the goal is to release it around Halloween and around the time of the 7th film when that gets released to the public.
Awesome.
That's pretty cool. I didn't know that about the 7th film. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's crazy too, and no one wants to talk about it too. I ask every single person in an interview, and they're like, "I can't say anything." I'm like, Coach for real though. Say something.
That's great.
All right, so guys, where can everybody find the Hell House trilogy and Hell House Lake of Fire Part 3? Where can everybody find these films?
Definitely go to our friends at Shudder. Best place to watch horror. All three are there. And the original is on Amazon Prime and iTunes. And I think all three will be on iTunes eventually, but that's like in 2020.
And for those of you who don't have Shudder, if you actually go to Shudder now, there's a free 14-day promo code. If you put in the promo code Hell House LLC 3, and you can get Shudder for 14 days free, so you can check out all three of the Hell House films as well as any other films you want on there.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you guys again for being on. That is the writer-director Stephen Cognetti of the Hell House trilogy and producer Joe Bandelli. Guys, thank you once again for being on. I can't wait for everybody else to check out the latest film if they haven't. And I mean it when I say it, that the Hell House LLC trilogy is just a perfect Halloween series to watch with a group of friends.
Hey, man, that means a lot. Thanks so much for saying that. Appreciate that.
And thank you guys for having us on. We appreciate it. We obviously do all of this stuff for people like you guys and other people that love this stuff. So we're very grateful and happy that we have fans out there that really care about this stuff.
Absolutely. Thank you guys once again for being on, and hopefully we'll talk soon. We'll talk maybe see if we can get you on around the Paranormal Activity documentary.
Absolutely. Awesome. Thanks, guys.
All right. Thank you guys.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Take care.
Once again, that was the writer-director Stephen Cognetti of the Hell House LLC trilogy and producer Joe Bandelli. They were awesome guests to have, Blake.
They were great.
Yeah, so you can go check those, all three of them out on Shudder. Use that 14-day trial to its fullest extent in October.
Also, I just want to say, Shudder's $5 a month. I mean...
Even as if someone's not a horror fan, there's so many great films to discover on there, and it's my favorite service to have. It's easily worth $5 a month. It's less than that if you buy it for a year. So go check those out. And what else do we got going on here? You can check out. We got to do a little plug ourselves for the next Killer Countdown. We're gonna be recording it right after this, actually.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah,
I can't wait. We're doing Rob Zombie. We're doing his entire filmography.
Yeah, we're doing the entire Rob Zombie filmography. You can check that out. That'll be, by the time this episode is out, that Rob Zombie episode will already have been out. So that's going to be awesome.
Wow, we're working hard tonight.
Working hard. So thank you guys for listening. Of course, like us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Follow us on all those social media platforms. You can find the podcast on literally anything. And Blake, we'll sign it off here, and let's get to recording the Rob Zombie episode.
Oh yeah, let's do it.
Blake, thank you for being on, and thank you for telling me about the Hell House.
Yeah,
the first film.
It was one of those things. I think I heard about it on another podcast, and I was like, all right, I'll give it a shot. And I'm pretty sure I was texting you immediately
as you were watching it.
I'm like, this movie. I was watching it in broad daylight, and it was scaring me. Like I was.
Yeah,
man.
I watched I watched all three in preparation for this, and I watched that first one, Home Alone, in the dark. I was checking the corners. Every the ice machine would go off. I'm like, what the hell was that?
Yeah, it's a great.
So if you want one of those movies, go watch Hell House. And thank you all once again for listening, and we'll check you out next time on the Backlot of South Dakota.